You shouldn't exist. Not in a cruel way, not in a philosophical riddle kind of way, but statistically, historically, biologically, you are an impossibility that somehow happened anyway. Think about it. Every person who came before you had to survive long enough to pass on their genes. Every single one. Your great-great-great-grandmother had to avoid the plague. Your ancestor in the 1600s had to survive childbirth, infection, famine, war. Go back further. Someone in your bloodline had to outrun a predator, find food during a drought, not drink the wrong water. One mistake, one moment of bad luck, one different choice, and the entire chain breaks. You vanish. You were never born. But you're here. Against impossible odds, you made it. You exist in this specific moment in time in a world that would seem like pure fantasy to almost everyone who ever lived. You have antibiotics, you have electricity, you have access to more information in your pocket than entire civilizations possessed. You will likely live past 70. You probably won't watch half your children die before they turn 5. You won't lose your teeth by 30 or die from an infected splinter. But what if you didn't get this lucky? What if instead of being born now, in this age of unprecedented comfort and safety, you arrived 5 centuries too early? What if you opened your eyes in the year 1525, in a world that would feel alien and hostile in ways you can't even imagine? Let's find out. Let's go back. Not to visit, but to live. To breathe the air, eat the food, face the dangers. To understand what it really meant to be human before modernity gave us the illusion that we're somehow separate from nature, from suffering, from the brutal mathematics of survival. Close your eyes. When you open them, everything you know is gone. The first thing you notice is the smell. It hits you before anything else, thick and inescapable. It's the scent of unwashed bodies, animal waste, rotting food, smoke from wood fires, and something else underneath it all. Something sour and organic that you can't quite place. It's the smell of a world without sewage systems, without running water, without any concept of germ theory. This is what the air tastes like in 1525. This is normal. You're standing in a European town, maybe in England, maybe in what will one day be Germany or France. The streets are narrow, barely wide enough for 2 people to pass. There's no pavement, just packed dirt that turns to thick mud when it rains. That mud isn't just mud. It's mixed with animal droppings, human waste thrown from windows above, discarded food scraps, and the runoff from nearby butcher shops. You're wearing shoes, probably wooden clogs or leather boots if you're lucky, but they're already soaked through. The buildings lean toward each other, timber frames with wattle and daub walls, thatched roofs that drip when it rains and harbor rats when it doesn't. Most structures are 1 or 2 stories, dark inside because glass is expensive and windows are small. The streets twist without logic, formed over centuries by foot traffic and custom rather than planning. There are no street signs, no addresses. You navigate by landmarks, by knowing which alley leads to the baker, which turn takes you to the church. Speaking of the church, you see it rising above everything else, its stone tower the tallest structure for miles. That tower isn't just architecture, it's a statement. It's the physical manifestation of the only institution with more power than the local lord. In this world, the church doesn't just control your soul, it controls your calendar, your education, your access to charity, your understanding of how the universe works. Every Sunday, you'll be there. Not because you're especially devout, but because not going marks you as suspicious, possibly heretical, definitely dangerous.
But let's talk about your life, your actual daily existence. First, who are you? The odds are overwhelming that you are a peasant. Not a romantic pastoral peasant from a painting, a real one. Someone who works the land, who owes labor and crops to a lord you'll rarely see, whose entire existence revolves around the seasons and the harvest. You live in a small cottage, 1 room, maybe 2 if your family has done well. The floor is dirt, the walls are thin. In winter, you might share your living space with your animals because their body heat helps keep everyone alive. Your family is larger than you're used to thinking about, not because people have more children, but because survival is a communal effort. Your parents, if they're still alive, live with you. Your siblings, your cousins, your children, all under 1 roof. Privacy is a concept that doesn't exist yet. You've never been alone. Not truly. From birth to death, you're surrounded by people, by noise, by the constant presence of others. Solitude isn't peaceful here. It's terrifying. It means you're vulnerable, unprotected, cut off from the only safety net that exists, which is other people. Let's talk about food. You're hungry. Not the kind of hungry where you skip lunch and feel a bit peckish by 3, the kind of hungry that gnaws at you, that makes your stomach cramp, that occupies your thoughts more than anything else. Most people in this era exist in a state of perpetual near starvation. The food you do get is coarse, bland, repetitive. Bread, if you're lucky, made from rye or barley, often mixed with ground peas or even bark when grain is scarce. Pottage, a thick soup of vegetables and grains, boiled until it's barely recognizable. Meat is rare, maybe once a week if you're doing well, more likely a few times a year for festivals. Forget seasoning, forget variety. Spices exist, but they're so expensive that they're literally used as currency. Black pepper is worth more than silver. A small bag of cinnamon could buy you a cow. You taste salt, sometimes. You taste smoke because everything is cooked over open fire. But that explosion of flavor you get from a simple meal today, that complexity of taste, doesn't exist in your world. And the quality of that food? Questionable at best. Bread might contain ergot, a fungus that causes hallucinations, convulsions, gangrene. Your water, drawn from a well that's probably contaminated by runoff from the latrine pits uphill, carries diseases you have no name for. You drink ale instead, weak ale, because the brewing process kills some of the pathogens. Children drink it. Everyone drinks it. Chronic low-level alcohol consumption isn't a choice, it's survival.
Your body shows it. By the time you're 30, you look 50 by modern standards. Your teeth are worn down, many of them rotted or missing entirely. Your skin is weathered, marked by scars from injuries that never healed quite right. You're shorter than you would be in the 21st century, stunted by childhood malnutrition. Your back hurts constantly from the physical labor. Your joints ache. You have parasites, intestinal worms that you've carried for so long you don't remember what it feels like to not have them. But you don't complain. Everyone feels like this. Pain is normal. Discomfort is the default state of existence. You work through it because stopping means starving. Your day begins before dawn. It has to. Daylight is precious because artificial light is expensive and dim. You have candles, maybe, made from tallow that smells like burning fat and produces more smoke than light. You have rushes dipped in grease. That's it. When the sun sets, your world plunges into a darkness so complete that it's disorienting. There are no streetlights, no illuminated windows, no ambient glow, just black. The kind of darkness that makes you understand why people believed in demons, in things that hunt in the night. So, you wake early. If you're a farmer, and you probably are, you head to the fields. You're not farming your own land. You're farming strips in a communal field system bound by tradition and obligation to the Lord who owns everything. You plant wheat, barley, rye, peas. You use a wooden plow pulled by an ox if you're fortunate, by yourself if you're not. The work is backbreaking. There are no machines, no tractors, no irrigation systems. You're entirely dependent on weather you can't predict and understand through superstition rather than science. Every few years, the harvest fails. Maybe it's too much rain, rotting the crops in the field. Maybe it's drought, leaving the earth cracked and barren. Maybe it's an early frost, killing everything before it can mature. When that happens, people die. Not quickly, but slowly, over the winter months, as food stores dwindle and then disappear entirely. You watch neighbors waste away. You watch children become quiet, lethargic, their bellies swollen with hunger. You might make it through by eating seed grain, which means next year will be even worse. Or you don't make it through at all. And if you survive the hunger, there's disease. Oh, there's so much disease. Smallpox leaves survivors scarred and sometimes blind. Typhus spreads through lice that everyone carries. Dysentery, cholera, tuberculosis. They don't have names yet, not really. They're just fevers, just sicknesses, just the way people die. Medicine exists, sort of. There are healers, herbalists who know that willow bark helps with pain, that certain poultices can draw out infection. But most treatments are useless at best, harmful at worst. Bloodletting for everything. prayers and pilgrimages, amulets and charms. If you get seriously ill, you probably die. A burst appendix is a death sentence. A difficult childbirth kills the mother, the baby, or both. A broken bone that sets wrong leaves you crippled. Infection is everywhere, in every cut, every scrape, every wound, and there's nothing anyone can do about it except hope your body fights it off. Women face unique horrors. Pregnancy is dangerous, childbirth more so. You'll likely be pregnant many times throughout your reproductive years. You'll probably lose several children in infancy. The grief of burying a child doesn't diminish because it's common. You still mourn, you still wonder what they would have become, but you also accept it as inevitable. You name children after their dead siblings. You have another baby, and another, because enough might survive to take care of you in old age if you make it that far. Let's talk about violence, because it's everywhere, woven into the fabric of daily life in ways that would shock you. Judicial punishment is public and brutal. Theft might get you hanged. Heresy gets you burned. Criminals are executed in town squares while crowds gather to watch. The body is sometimes left hanging as a warning. This isn't considered barbaric. This is justice. This is order.
But there's also casual violence, interpersonal violence. Arguments escalate quickly because everyone is armed with knives, with tools that double as weapons. Men carry daggers as routinely as you carry a phone. Tempers flare in taverns, in markets, in fields, and suddenly someone is bleeding out in the street. Murder rates are staggeringly high compared to the modern world. Honor and reputation matter more than life sometimes. An insult demands satisfaction. A slight requires response. War is constant. Not in the sense that you're always fighting, but it's always happening somewhere, always a possibility, always a threat. Lords feud with each other. Kingdoms clash over territory, over succession, over religion. If you're unlucky enough to be in the path of an army, your village gets pillaged. Soldiers take your food, your animals, sometimes your daughters. Your house might be burned just because. You flee if you can, hide if you can't, and hope you're not interesting enough to pursue. And yet, people find joy. They find meaning. They celebrate. There are feast days, dozens of them throughout the year, when normal rules relax and communities come together. Harvest festivals, saints' days. Christmas lasts 12 days and involves actual celebration, actual excess, a brief respite from the grinding difficulty of existence. People dance. They sing. They tell stories. They get drunk and rowdy and human in ways that transcend time. There's music, simple music, played on instruments you'd recognize. Flutes and drums and stringed things. The melodies are different, but the impulse is the same. People need beauty. They need something to lift them out of the dirt and the drudgery, even briefly. There's community in ways you've forgotten in the modern world. Everyone knows everyone. You're born, live, and die within a few miles of the same spot, surrounded by the same faces. That's claustrophobic, yes, but it's also security. You're never anonymous. You're never truly alone. When your house burns down, the village helps rebuild it. When you're sick, someone brings food. When you die, they'll mourn you, really mourn you, because your absence leaves a hole in the fabric of their lives. Your identity is clear. You're not searching for purpose or meaning or self-actualization. You're a farmer, a baker, a blacksmith's apprentice. You're defined by your role, your family, your place in the hierarchy. That's limiting, deeply so, but it's also comforting. You know who you are. You know what's expected of you. The modern anxiety of infinite choice doesn't exist. Your spiritual life is rich, probably richer than anything you experience now. The church isn't just where you go on Sundays, it's the center of everything, the most beautiful building you'll ever enter, filled with stained glass and paintings and statues that tell stories to a population that mostly can't read. The rituals are elaborate, mysterious, performed in Latin that you don't understand, but that carries weight precisely because it's incomprehensible. It's sacred language for sacred things. You believe, truly, deeply, without the ironic distance that characterizes modern faith. You believe in God and in the devil. You believe in angels and demons, in saints who intercede on your behalf, in miracles that happen in the real world. When you pray, you expect answers.
When something good happens, it's divine providence. When something bad happens, it's either God's will or the devil's work or your own sin coming back to punish you. That worldview is terrifying in some ways. You live with the constant fear of damnation, of hell, which isn't metaphorical but a real place of eternal torture waiting for sinners. But it's also comforting. The universe has order. Justice might not come in this life, but it will come. The suffering you endure has meaning. It's a test, a purification, a chance to earn salvation. Nothing is random. Nothing is meaningless. You have no concept of progress, at least not in the way modernity thinks about it. The world isn't getting better. It's not moving toward anything. History is cyclical if you think about it at all. The golden age was in the past, in Rome, in the time of Christ. You're living in a degraded age, waiting for the end times, which could come any day. There's no sense that your children's lives will be better than yours, that knowledge accumulates, that humanity is climbing towards something greater.
And maybe there's freedom in that. You're not striving for more. You're not measuring yourself against impossible standards. You're not failing to achieve dreams because you have no concept that life could be radically different. You endure. You survive. You find small pleasures in a hard world, and that's enough. It has to be enough. Time moves differently for you. There are no clocks, not in any meaningful sense. Church bells mark the hours loosely. You measure time by seasons, by agricultural cycles, by the liturgical calendar. Weeks blend together, years too. At 50, if you're lucky enough to reach 50, you might not know exactly how old you are. Birth records are spotty. Numbers are approximate. You're simply old. Your body tells you that more clearly than any document could. You've never traveled more than 20 miles from where you were born. The next town over is foreign territory, slightly different dialect, different customs, different lord. The capital, wherever that is, might as well be on the moon. You've heard of it. Maybe you've heard stories from someone who went there once. But it's not part of your world. Your world is small, tangible, knowable. The forest at the edge of your village, the river where you fish, the church, the fields, the houses you pass every day. You've never seen a map. You don't know what the world looks like from above. You don't know that continents exist, that there are places where people live completely differently, where the climate is different, where everything is different. Your education, such as it is, consists of what your parents taught you, what the priest mentions in sermons, what you've absorbed through experience. You can't read. Maybe you know your prayers in Latin, memorized phonetically without understanding the words. Maybe you can sign your name with an X. This isn't ignorance in the way we think of it. It's just reality. Knowledge is scarce, precious, locked away in monasteries and universities you'll never see. Books are rare and expensive, each one copied by hand. The printing press exists, just barely in your time, but its effects haven't rippled outward yet. Most of human knowledge might as well not exist as far as you're concerned, because you have no access to it. But you know things the modern world has forgotten. You can read weather by the sky, predict frost by the behavior of animals. You know which plants are edible, which are medicinal, which will kill you. You can slaughter an animal, preserve meat, tan leather, make tools, build a fire in the rain, find water, navigate by stars. You have practical knowledge, survival knowledge, the kind of deep competence that comes from doing the same things every day for your entire life. You are, in some ways, more capable than your modern counterpart. You're tougher, more resilient, better at enduring discomfort. Pain doesn't shock you. Hunger doesn't panic you. You know how to keep going when everything hurts. You have grit born from necessity, from a life that doesn't offer the option of giving up. But you're also smaller in a sense. Your emotions aren't less real, but they're directed inward, toward immediate concerns.
You don't worry about abstract threats, climate change, geopolitical instability, existential risk from technology. Those concepts don't exist. Your anxieties are concrete. Will the harvest fail? Is that cough serious? Can we afford to fix the roof before winter? Will the Lord raise taxes again? And here's the strange part. Despite everything, despite the hunger and the pain and the fear and the grinding difficulty of every single day, you're probably not miserable. Not constantly. Humans adapt. We find equilibrium. The baseline of happiness shifts to match circumstances. You have moments of genuine contentment. A good meal after weeks of thin rations. The warmth of the fire on a cold night. Your child's laughter. The satisfaction of a hard day's work completed. These things matter. They're enough to sustain you, to give you reasons to wake up tomorrow and do it all again.
You're not constantly comparing your life to something better because you can't imagine something fundamentally better. This is life. This is what it means to be human. You endure it, you survive it, and in the spaces between survival, you live. Now come back. Come back to the present, to your comfortable chair, your climate-controlled room, your access to food and medicine and endless entertainment. Come back to a world where infant mortality is rare, where most diseases are treatable, where you'll probably live to see 80, where you have choices, so many choices that choosing becomes paralyzing. You have everything your ancestor couldn't even dream of. And yet, are you happier? Do you have more purpose, more meaning, more connection? Or have you traded one set of problems for another? The modern world has given you safety, but it's taken community. You can live your entire life without really knowing your neighbors. You can go days without meaningful human connection. You're surrounded by people but profoundly alone in ways that would have been impossible in 1525. The modern world has given you comfort, but it's also given you endless desire. There's always something more to want, something better to achieve, some way you're failing to optimize your life. Contentment is harder when perfection seems just barely out of reach. The modern world has given you information, but it's also given you confusion. You know too much. You're aware of every tragedy, every injustice, every problem on a global scale. You carry the weight of the world in a way your ancestor never had to. They worried about their village. You worry about everything, everywhere, all at once. The modern world has given you freedom, but it's taken certainty. You can be anything, which means you're responsible for whatever you become. Your ancestor was a peasant because they were born a peasant. You're choosing your path, and every wrong turn feels like personal failure. This isn't to romanticize the past. You don't want to live in 1525. Nobody does. The suffering was real. The pain was real. The injustice and brutality and casual cruelty were real. Modernity has genuinely improved human life in countless measurable ways. But something has been lost too. Some sense of groundedness, of being part of something larger than yourself, of your suffering having meaning beyond just your individual experience. Your ancestor didn't have therapy or self-help books, but they had a framework that made sense of hardship. They had community that showed up without being asked. They had purpose that wasn't contingent on achievement. You exist because they survived, because they endured, because on the worst days, when everything hurt and nothing was certain, they found reasons to keep going. They had children who had children who had children, an unbroken chain spanning centuries, all leading to you. You carry their DNA, literally, but you also carry something less tangible, the echo of their resilience, the ghost of their determination. You are the answer to their struggles, the far future person they could never imagine, but whose existence justifies everything they went through. And 500 years from now, someone will look back at you the same way. They'll marvel at what you endured,
the uncertainties you lived with, the problems you faced that seemed insurmountable from inside them, but are solved, trivial, forgotten in their time. They'll wonder how you managed, how you found happiness, how you kept going when the world seemed to be falling apart.
You are a miracle, not because you're special, but because you exist at all. Because your ancestors survived the Black Death and the Mongol invasions and the volcanic winters and the countless unnamed disasters that should have ended the human experiment. Because someone 5 centuries ago, living a life you can barely imagine, refused to give up. Because they found meaning in hardship and joy in small things and kept going anyway. So maybe the question isn't really about what would happen if you were born 500 years too early. Maybe the question is what you do with the time you've been given. This miraculous, improbable moment in history when you're alive, when you have choices your ancestors couldn't conceive of, when you have power they couldn't imagine. You didn't earn this life. You were born into it through blind chance, through the accumulated luck of thousands of people who came before you. But you're here now, and what you do with that, how you treat the gift of existence in an age of unprecedented possibility, that matters. Your ancestor in 1525 survived so you could be here. They would find your complaints trivial, your anxieties bizarre, your comfort incomprehensible. But they would understand one thing, the thing that connects all humans across all of time, the desire to matter, to be remembered, to leave something behind that says you were here, you existed, you were part of the great chain of being that stretches from the past into a future you'll never see. So live. Not in the way someone 500 years ago lived, clinging to survival, but in a way they would have envied, with intention, with gratitude, with awareness of how improbable and precious this all is, with recognition that you've been given something extraordinary, not just time, but time in an age when most of the ancient killers have been defeated, when you have the luxury of pursuing meaning rather than just survival. You are 500 years too late to live in the hard world that forged your ancestors, and you are exactly on time to live in this one, softer and stranger and full of different challenges. Make it count, because someone in the future is counting on you to survive, to persist, to pass the chain forward one more generation. You shouldn't exist, but you do, and that, more than anything else, is worth remembering.